Let's get rolling. And we're going to jump into counselor salesperson and begin with the overview of counselor salesperson and really look at refreshing the concept of selling balance. And here we have a bicycle, and it is the metaphor for counselor salesperson. Herb, what would you like to share? What's just maybe a key nugget to drive home about the bicycle as a metaphor?
Yeah, just a couple things on this one. This is one that you all know we've used for quite some time when it comes to counselor sales process. It's about being balanced, and the key is as you coach and train your people in this area, you want to continue to get them to recognize that as they work with their customers and prospects, they've got to be able to demonstrate that they have an appropriate suite of backward technical skills, but also they have the proper amount of people skills in order to help their customers move comfortably through the buying and selling process. The key is balance, because we all know what happens when a bicycle is out of balance. So strong back wheel, big back wheel, small front wheel, there are going to be some consequences. Big front wheel, small back wheel, there will also be consequences. So I would ask you to challenge your people to make sure they understand the importance of this and the consequences when they're out of balance. And always continue to practice and stretch themselves to make sure they're constantly working on improving their back wheel technical skills as well as their front wheel people skills. The key here, of course, is when your people do this really well and do it consistently, they will be able to achieve and move closer toward what I call the holy grail of being an effective salesperson. They can begin to achieve what we call trusted advisor status.
So Herb, I really like that nugget that you gave, and maybe to add on a little bit, what you're really driving home, it is more than just being right? You need more than just the right technical answer, and that is the important part of having the balance for the people side. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. That's exactly right.
Fantastic. So let's go ahead and transition on to the model itself. And there are 4 barriers for counselor salesperson. And those are no trust, no need, no help, and no satisfaction. And at the core is the problem-solving attitude. And from that problem-solving attitude, we can then address the barriers by relating to overcome no trust, discovering to overcome no need, advocating to overcome no help, and supporting to overcome no satisfaction. Her thoughts, key points to emphasize as far as reinforcing the model and introducing the model itself. It seems like sometimes we get busy and we just kind of launch through right to advocating our solution.
Yeah, well, a couple things I'd like to emphasize on this one as you introduce the model. Look at the core of the model. The center of the model, as you said, Pete, is problem-solving attitude. And what I like to add in there is problem-solving win-win attitude. It's important to add that in there, but having people focus on attitude, that is mindset. It all begins with your people having the right mindset before they begin to work with their customers in terms of the right attitude, the right perspective before they walk in the door. Because if they don't do that, they run the risk of doing what Pete just said, perhaps prematurely advocating, making assumptions. So they got to make sure they got the right mindset before they walk in the door. This is the core of the counseling process. This is what it's really all about. And again, this is the reason why we've embraced it since 1986. Because it all talks about how human beings are wired and what they go through when they are exposed to the buying and selling process. That's why this really works well. So make sure your people can totally understand what this is about. They have to begin to have those conversations to overcome those barriers that we know are going to exist. But it all begins with having the right mindset, problem-solving win-win attitude, and then engaging in a behavior that consistently exudes that in every part of the counseling process. Letting the customer know at all times that you are there, you're focused on them. The counseling process is an outside end process. The focus must always be on the customer. It begins with that attitude. So make sure your people get that, they live that, they breathe that, and everything they do exudes and illustrates they've got that problem-solving win-win attitude.
Herb, I love it, and what rang to my ear there is that behavior for win-win, right?
Exactly.
Where we're not saying win-win, but we're really behaving win-lose, or allowing the customer to set up lose-win. We
Exactly.
really need to embrace and embody win-win.
Correct. It's all about win-win, and the focus is always on the customer. That's the key, right there.
Fantastic. Let's transition to the time tension model, where we have the forces of tension coming together, and we have relationship tension. What points do we want to emphasize there, Herb?
Well, again, just take a look at the whole idea of the counselor concept and the counselor approach. The challenge of the counselor approach is this whole time tension model that Pete just alluded to. Your people have to understand, for example, the whole tension dynamic, begin with relationship tension, and we call that, as you all know, we call that negative tension. This is something that naturally exists between two people who have not had a relationship. There's a certain level of discomfort that people experience when they first begin to work together. We all go through it. No matter how experienced we are, we'll still go through that. The key is, before you can move forward in that whole process of getting someone to want to work with you on something, you have to take the time to recognize that it exists, number one, and engage in the right behaviors to reduce it. And when you think about relationship tension, think about it in terms of comfort versus discomfort. High relationship tension means high discomfort. Low relationship tension means high comfort. We want our customers and prospects to be comfortable with us and our dialogue and what we want to work on. The first thing you want to make sure that people understand the definitions of what this means, and we're going to get into what they can do, what they need to do in order to lower it, in order to create comfort.
So, recapping, Herb, one of the keys that I think I thought I heard is, what am I doing as the sales professional to make the customer more comfortable?
Yeah, exactly right. That's important. That's critical. What is it that you're doing, and what should you be doing to keep down? And also keep in mind that this dynamic can be very volatile. So remember, even though we represent it many times as a straight line, in reality, it's more of a bumpy line, because things can happen during the discourse of that relationship to where it's going to continue to go up and down. So part of that responsibility is to recognize the signs of high relationship tension and then begin to engage in right behaviors to bring it back down, because it is a barrier. That's the key word. It's a barrier to moving forward effectively in the sales process.
And we have many relationships inside the same customer or prospect opportunity as well. So, we might be driving a relationship down with one person, but still have high relationship tension with someone else.
Okay. And that's a great point that you're making, Pete, and for everyone out here, just keep in mind, and this goes to the heart of the whole counsel process. These skills and behaviors are something that's associated with working with another human being. It's not a general thing. You have to focus these skills on every person that you work with throughout the sales process. It's a human-to-human interactive process.
Fantastic. So time equals zero, Herb. I'm driving relationship tension down.
Yeah.
At the same time, I want to look to drive task tension up.
Yeah, exactly right. That's exactly what you want to do. And that's, by the way, it's the good tension. That's the good stuff. That's the juicy stuff. We want it to be as high as possible. However, it won't happen automatically. There's some things that your people will have to do, some behaviors they have to illustrate, to engage in, to help drive that up. The relationship, though, is, as long as relationship tension is high, there is a causal relationship. High relationship tension is a barrier to task tension going up. So once you get that relationship tension down, then the path is clear now, and if we engage in the right behaviors, to begin to increase what we call that positive tension, which is the good tension. We know the definition is that sense of urgency that two people have to get on about the business of getting something done toward that win-win. That's what we want. So we want high relationship tension and low relationship tension and high task tension is what we're driving for here.
And what I heard you say, Herb, to maybe reinforce, as just a human being, I'm going to be more inclined to do something, get something done with you if I'm more comfortable and the relationship tension's down.
Exactly right. You will be much more inclined to do that, and it creates the space to where the task tension is more likely to increase if you got that low relationship tension. That's becomes the key.
So, as a district manager, area manager leading this training session, what point should I emphasize about the intersection of the relationship and task tension?
Yeah, the key thing here is where those two things actually intersect. This is where you truly have what we call the selling zone or the sales opportunity presents itself. It's where the good stuff can begin to happen. Where relationship tension is sufficiently low, task tension has increased appropriately now, that becomes the selling zone or the selling opportunity. The other thing about that is, of course, when your people really get good at this, which is what you want, is they will be able to take this whole model here and they can compress it. I know we're going to get into it, but you can shorten the time it takes to make this happen for real. Where they can lower relationship tension, they can increase task tension. It means the whole sales process is moving forward a lot faster, much more productive in the efforts and the activities.
So, Herb, you know what? You've got born salespeople. You're sitting here and you're telling me that I can actually get better at dropping relationship tension down faster. Is that what we're going to premise that we're going to share with our team?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what's the stake here. That's right. If you can develop these skills that we're going to get into around some things you can do, some things you can demonstrate, you'll be able to do that a lot faster.
Okay, I buy that, Herb. Maybe I can get better at dropping relationship tension down faster because I'm going to really work on making the other person feel more comfortable. But raising the task tension, my goodness, I just need to wait for their boiler to blow up or for their cooling tower, so then they really have a huge sense of urgency, right?
Yeah.
What can I possibly do to raise task tension sooner?
And again, well, we know how this works being out there in the real world. If we wait around for this to happen on its own, we might be waiting for a long time or forever. In other words, we're going to miss out on opportunities. The reality is, once you get that relationship tension down, there's some other skills and behaviors that we talk about in the constant process that's designed to increase task tension. Now, and to get into it a little bit, of course, if you think about it, once we move, for example, into discovery, which is the next phase of the constant process, that's really the magic of discovery. It's designed to increase task tension.
Yeah, and everybody hear what Herb said. That to me is the huge pearl. Time equals zero. Relating and discovering are happening at that point.
Right.
At time equals zero. Right. There is no line in the sand that says like, "Woohoo! I am done relating. I can move on to discovering." So those happen concurrently. And this is the point that you want to drive home, is by embracing and embodying and employing the counselor salesperson relating skills, they're going to make the customer feel more comfortable, i.e. dropping relationship tension down faster, and by implementing discovering skills, asking good questions, really listening, you're going to be able to raise task tension much more quickly and bring awareness to the customer's gap more quickly. So this time tension curve graph, while it seems simple, this really is going to help you map out the essence of counselor salesperson.
Which is great. If I can just add to what Peter's saying, to sum it up really, really well, because sometimes people miss this because of how we introduce the training. For the sake of really covering each part of the counsel process, we do it module by module. You want to make sure your people understand, though, that the counsel process is very dynamic. To Pete's point, these things are always happening simultaneously. For example, whenever you're in front of another human being, you are always relating. Even when you're in the discovery phase, you are relating. The question becomes, are you doing it consciously, or are you letting it happen by accident? What we ask your people to do is to be very conscious about that and be always aware that they have an opportunity to relate. The other thing is this whole thing about relationship tension and task tension The key skill here is your people have to get very good at being able to manage tension throughout that relationship. You gotta manage it, because it's gonna be all over the map. They gotta be able to read the signs. When relationship tension is high, they gotta pick it up quickly and engage in the right skills and behaviors to bring it back down. Otherwise, the process stops. It's undermined. They have to become very, very good at managing the whole tension dynamic throughout the relationship.
Yeah, thanks, Herb. What a great summary. So let's go ahead and launch in. How do we overcome the barrier of no trust? By demonstrating relating, and the two components that make up relating are credibility plus empathy. So let's go ahead and unpackage the first aspect of that, credibility. And there are 4 pillars to credibility: propriety, competence, commonality, and intent. Herb, can you share some thoughts as to those 4 pillars and points to emphasize for our district managers and area managers leading the session?
Yeah, sure, Pete. So as Pete said, these are what we call the 4 pillars, or the 4 elements, or the 4 factors of credibility. And this is all based upon exhaustive research that's been done by Wilson Learning. And what it says essentially is these 4 things will properly, and the key word here is demonstrate. And that's what we like you to really emphasize with your people. Demonstration becomes the key. Now, before you demonstrate, though, it's important that you have these things as a part of who you are. For example, propriety. You have to have it. Competence. You have to be competent. Commonality. Intent. It's not enough just to have it, though. You need to engage in the right behaviors, the right communication skills to demonstrate that you have these things. If you do that consistently and do it well at every opportunity, what will come out of that is you begin to create and maintain the most precious commodity you can have with any human being, customer or prospect, is trust. That's the key here. The other thing I want to emphasize is you look at these 4 factors. They're all very, very important. They all make a significant contribution to the perception of being trustworthy. We talk about, though, of all 4, though, we say intent tends to be, based upon the research, makes the most significant contribution. However, as a caveat, we want to make sure that our people do not short circuit any of these, because for any one person, if you don't do any one of these things well, it could in fact be a showstopper. Poor propriety can turn somebody off to where they don't want to work with you throughout the process, or poor or lack of confidence, or lack of commonality, or breakdown in intent. So keep in mind, the way we get by this pickle I call it is, we don't cut corners on any of these people. We make sure that we plan, and I get to that, you hear us talk about it all the time, plan well for these. You have to plan for them, of course. Plan to demonstrate, and when you're in front of a customer, we take action. We demonstrate to our customers at all times how we got this down.
Herb, thanks for that summary, and just to maybe share some of the things that I heard. I loved how you used the word demonstrate. So this isn't enough to just think about it or talk about it. We actually have to demonstrate these behaviors. And one of the pitfalls that I think we sometimes fall into is like, hey, I talked to the key decision maker about sports and the weather, so I related to him. I dropped that relationship tension down. He trusts me. And it's superficial, and we're missing these other components of propriety and competence and intent, and we think commonality sometimes is the be-all, end-all to relating, and it's really not. And so I really love how you emphasized focusing on all 4 of the pillars.
That's important. That's important. So one of the things that I would recommend you do as you work with your teams is just take a little time to have a conversation about how do you demonstrate these, and take the approach for the do's and the don'ts. And it's okay to do this multiple times until it becomes embedded in people's psyche to where it's a part of how they operate. There's certain do's and don'ts around propriety, for example. There's certain things we like to steer away from. Certain things we want to just make sure we don't do. Be mindful of jokes too soon. Be mindful of things around politics and things like that. Certain things that we want to make sure we steer clear of. Same thing on competence. Be mindful there are certain things we want to be careful of. For example, when someone asks you a question, and you don't know what that answer is, what's our response, Pete? What do we do?
We sometimes make up an answer, or we just look like a deer in the headlights.
Yes.
And say, I don't know.
Right, correct. So, Pete, don't make up an answer. Check the BS. Do not try to fool someone. We simply are honest and transparent. We do not know, and we follow up with the promise and the commitment that doggone it, we're going to find out, and then we deliver on that promise. The caveat here is you got to be careful though, not to fall back on that too much. If I'm working with Pete's my customer, and my customer asks me something, and I say, well, Pete, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Then Pete asks me another question, and I say, well, Pete, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. He does it again. He does it 5 more times, and my response is, I don't know. At some point, you begin to see the perception of credibility.
Can I talk to the person who does know? Because Herb, I'm tired of you having to go find out.
So that should be a call to action for your people. Make sure they understand that. It means we need to tighten up our game when it comes to certain areas around competence and things like that. That's just a call to action, it's a red flag. That's one thing I want to make sure you people are aware of. Commonality. Think about commonality. Well, very important. Because all it says is, as a human thing, people prefer, people are more comfortable. People would rather work with someone that they've got something in common with beyond, quote, the superficial, unquote. That's the key. So many times what some of our people will do is they'll have what I call sometimes false or superficial or limited commonality that's not really real. You got to make sure this one is genuine here though, and it goes beyond, again, the superficial. It means that you have to take the time to share something about yourself as well. Don't rush it. Coach your people on this one very carefully. Do not rush commonality. Let it happen. It will come to you if you're patient. Because sometimes I talk about the concept. You've heard of 6 degrees of separation, Pete?
Yes,
heard
I
that
have.
concept before?
Yes.
No longer 6. It's no longer 6. In our world of connectivity, it's now closer to probably 2 degrees of separation. All that means is, if you're open and honest as you dialogue with your customers and prospects, you will see numerous opportunities to establish genuine commonality. Be careful about that one. So sometimes people will look around and look for things to kind of latch on to. Just take your time and be patient. It's going to happen. Be careful about that one. All right?
Love it, Herb. And Herb, you had mentioned that the most important of the 4 pillars is intent, because people really don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
So with that, how should a district manager or area manager transition into the purpose process payoff, the importance of the concept of purpose process payoff, and really what key points should they emphasize about each of those components, purpose, process, and payoff?
Yeah, thank you, Pete. That takes us to the next level because this one is a showstopper. You can make a few errors perhaps in those first 3, and you can still come. This one you cannot make a mistake in and move forward. If in fact, and think about it, look at it from your perspective. You're working with someone, and somehow they believe that your intent is misaligned, is manipulative, is disjointed, you're trying to control them, they're trying to get their hands in your pocket. That, my friends, is a deal breaker. Off with the head. That's what's going to happen. Well, make sure your people understand that. Now, in the council process, it recognizes that. It recognizes that demonstrating positive intent is so critical, and there's a special technique called purpose process payoff. So you want to make sure your people understand the reasons behind it. That's what the council does so well. It covers the what, however, it does a great job of talking about the why. Make sure people understand the reason behind it. That way they can be more attentive to making sure they do it. So it's designed to address 3 basic concerns that people are going to have when they're spending time with you that they probably don't have. It's going to address the one concern is, you know what, I'm busy, I got 50 million things going on, why are we spending time together? That's the purpose. Great, now that we agreed we're going to spend some time together, how is this interaction going to take place? What's going to be the agenda for this interaction? That's what it does. And oh, by the way, am I going to get anything out of it at all? That's what this is designed to do. It's designed to address 3 common concerns that everyone has, whether they know it or not, even on a subconscious level, when they're spending time with other people. That's the purpose, process, payoff. It's designed to consistently demonstrate positive intent at every single interaction, and you want to stress that to your people. We don't cut corners on this one. Maybe I do it in this meeting and not the next meeting. No. We come straight at it every single time. That's important to do that.
Herb, I love it. And linking back to 2 things that you had mentioned earlier, I think purpose, process, payoff, very, very powerful in reinforcing win-win, interaction. And what you touched on earlier too, that relating happens every single interaction, right? So sometimes I think we make a misnomer that I only need to do a purpose, process, payoff for this initial, interaction or initial meeting. We are relating every single time, demonstrating, overcoming that barrier of no trust every single time. That's why we do it in the relating phase, the discovering phase, the advocating phase, and in the supporting phase all the time.
Absolutely. A few other things that you may run into as you work with your teams on this one is, sometimes I get a little pushback where people will express that they're not comfortable with the words purpose, process. Have you ever ran into that, Pete?
They're rigid, Herb. They're mechanical. I don't like the words, for crying out loud.
There you go. So take them back to the reasons why we're doing it. Go for so what? Because remember, the focus is on who? The focus is on your customer and making sure we address their needs, their comfort levels, their desires for interacting. That's the key. So we have to be able to suspend our level of discomfort or to expand our level of comfort and continue to do this. That's very, very important. The other thing I just want to emphasize before we push on, Pete, is a couple of caveats here is, it should be, in other words, less is more. If you understand that analogy. Less is more. The purpose, process, payoff should be simple and to the point. Always simple and to the point. This is not designed to conduct your meeting in the purpose, process, payoff. So make sure they're not too wordy. Number one. All right. The second thing is on that payoff part. It's important because we say what's in it for you and what's in it for me. Make sure your people understand the reason why that is. Because remember, the essence of the constant process is about win-win. Now just think about how this works psychologically. Many times in our sales campaigns, we have many sales calls. It's very rarely we can close a piece of business, sometimes but not often, in one call. Multiple calls, am I right, Pete? Many calls.
Absolutely.
Yep. So many calls mean you're going to have many purpose, process, payoff statements. Now think about this one. If Pete and I are working together on a fairly long sales campaign, every time he and I sit down, not one time, every time, there's a clear purpose, process, payoff. A clear reason why we meet, a clear process of how this meeting is going to take place, and oh, by the way, there's something in it for Pete, and there's something in it for me. That's a huge psychological upside. At some point, there becomes a subconscious association with a win-win as we work together. It builds momentum toward that outcome that we're shooting for. That's another real value of doing this. We keep that in mind going forward, if that makes sense to everyone. So make sure you people understand that there's a lot of power in doing this that may not automatically meet the eye.
Herb, to me, the simplest way to build trust is to simply do what you say you are going to do.
Yeah.
And by starting off with a purpose, process, payoff, I'm essentially just sharing what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And then if I do that, I'm building trust, exactly. One step at a time.
That's it, one step at a time. That's how I like that, that one step at a time. The other thing is, and this is just something that you want to challenge your people on as you go through this process, is if they're not able, if they're having trouble coming up with a realistic purpose, process, payoff, something that's really relevant to that person they're going to be calling on, one of the things they need to reconsider is perhaps they should not be having a meeting. They need to reset and rethink whether or not they want to waste somebody's time in a meeting like that. That's to keep that in mind going forward.
Love it. So let's go ahead and transition on to the second aspect of the equation to trust as credibility plus empathy. And we used the Ben Duffy concept to demonstrate empathy, where we're anticipating the customer concerns, converting those concerns into questions, and then having the answers for those questions. So what are some tips that you would share with our district managers and area managers that they would want to introduce and emphasize the concept of Ben Duffy, Herb?
Well, I love Ben Duffy, and it's a very, as you all know, it's designed to demonstrate, here's that word again, to demonstrate empathy. That's what it's all about. Now, again, these are the experts based upon all the research we've seen. A demonstration of empathy has been proven to be the fastest, most effective form of human communication. That's been documented numerous times. Now why? Because what it says is a powerful visual demonstration that you care, that you care, that you care so much, that before we spending time together, I took the time to suspend my lens and trying to see this situation from your perspective. People get that. We'll make sure you people understand why this is so important though. People will always respond in a positive way when you take the time to demonstrate empathy. That's important. There's a couple of caveats about it. And we lay out in the council process the steps you go through. There's some steps you have to go through to prepare first, make sure you understand that, and going through the process to prepare. And then, real time, you have to demonstrate that you're taking the time to do that. Some people get concerned. They say, well, Herb, a couple things. What if I'm wrong? What if I come up with what I call this list of Ben Duffy questions, and doggone it, I just missed the mark? Here's the response. Two things. Number one, if you really go through the process correctly, it's not like you're going to be wrong or that far wrong, but even if you are wrong, it's okay. Why is it okay? Because you get credit for the effort. You get credit for the effort of doing that. It's the highest honor you can pay to another human being when you do exactly that. So don't lament, don't worry about that. Other caveats. People ask me, well, Herb, what's the right number of questions? I mean, 5, is it 5? Is it 10? Is it 15? What's the right number? There is no right number. There is no right number. For example, if you have a process where you go through the process of thinking about your customer's concerns, you convert those concerns to questions, say you come up with 15 of them. Okay, we ask you to simply prioritize. And think about the ones that are most critical based upon your best ability to figure out what that is. You prioritize and then be prepared to answer those questions in the actual call. Get your people to think about it from another perspective. What would it be like if they're in a call and they have not gone through this process of trying to anticipate what some of those concerns might be? All of a sudden you're in the middle of an important meeting and you get hit with one of those concerns and you never thought about it. What could happen, Pete, in a case like that?
Well, one of two things. It's totally going to derail me. I'm going to be off my game. Or I'm going to drive on with my agenda. So I'm not empathizing with the customer, and the customer's going to shut down or get really upset with me.
Exactly right. Exactly going to happen. And also, I want you to take your people back to what we just talked about, the whole time tension model, and how it might impact that dynamic. Remember, we are people too. We're on the other side of the table. We're people too. All of a sudden, we get nervous. We get a little antsy. That's going to affect your customers as well. It's going to begin to have a negative impact on the whole time tension model.
Herb, I love the linkage to the time tension model, because the thing I really, really love about Ben Duffy, this skill is going to help your people drive relationship tension down, but at the same time, raise task tension because you've asked some good questions.
Exactly right. Precisely. Bingo. All these things connected just like that, Pete. Couple things on this one too, team, is as you talk about the Ben Duffy with your people, here's what I have seen having done this over the years. Our people will make a legitimate and valiant effort to utilize the Ben Duffy approach in relating. They will do that. When they feel like they're on a relating call, they'll take the time to try to do that. Here's what happens though. As they move forward in the council process and begin to do more discovery and advocating, it's non-existent. I say ouch and wow. So please challenge and coach your people that there's upside in using the Ben Duffy approach throughout the process. Now, why is that? They need to see that and understand that. The reason why it's important is, you think about what's at stake here. We're talking about trust, credibility, and empathy. You demonstrate those two things, it's an investment in what I call your trust bank account. Think about it like a bank account. Whenever you're in front of another person, whenever you can demonstrate any of these things like this, large or small, it's a real investment in the trust bank account. We want your people to take full measure of that. And remember, this is not a gimmick. This is not a gimmick. There are no gimmicks in CSP. Ben Duffy is not a gimmick. It's a technique, it's an approach, but it's real. It's real. Keep that in mind. Okay?
Herb, fantastic. Let's go ahead and transition on. Any final comments about relating that you would like to share? Perhaps you had mentioned earlier in the purpose process payoff that sometimes we get too long-winded with that, and in some instances, what I've seen is we're well-intended. We want, hey Herb, I heard you. I want this short, concise purpose process payoff, but now I'm confused. You told me to have the Ben Duffy, and I start describing and answering all these questions in the middle of my purpose process payoff before I get to the actual payoff, and now I've got this huge run-on sentence slash paragraph slash novel before I can get the customer. And what advice do you have to our district managers and area managers to help keep it short and still convey the essence of Ben Duffy?
Yeah, well, first of all, you probably know where I'm going with this one. First of all, there's no shortcut for practicing these. You got to practice these. You got to practice it. Even keeping something short requires practice, because if you don't practice it, I guarantee you, you have, and excuse my language, folks, diarrhea of the lips. I got to get it out there. I got to create the right visual. That's what will happen. You go on and on and on. Now, you do have some latitude. To Pete's point, you can decide how you want to build in your Ben Duffy. You can make it a part of your process statement, depending upon how many Ben Duffy questions you have, but you got latitude. You can decide to break it up as well. One of the reasons why I like to break it up is because throughout the whole CSP process, relating and going forward, it is critical. It is absolutely critical to always find a way to keep your customers involved. We want dialogue. We don't want a monologue. So always find ways to check often, keep them involved, and keep it short. Because you want your customers doing as much talking as possible. We're there to direct traffic, to really begin to understand our customers, what they have, where they want to go. That's all we're there for, to keep the process moving in that general direction toward what? The win-win. We got back toward the win-win. So just coach your people on doing that. Keep it short, but no shortcut for practice, practice, practice. The other thing I'll say about the PPP, and it's kind of a subtle thing, and when you practice these PPPs, I want you to really evaluate how well they fit the model. The payoff statement, for example, needs to be clearly, and I use that word, clearly linked to the purpose statement. Easy to get off the reservation on that one. You go through a nice job of laying out the purpose, short and to the point, a good process statement. All of a sudden, they end up with this grandiose payoff statement. I want to be a business partner. I want to be a partner for life. They got to stay in the moment. It's got to stay in the moment of that specific interaction and where you're headed. That's a very important thing to really coach your people and challenge your people.
Fantastic, Herb. Thank you. And just to reiterate, you don't want to cut corners on purpose, process, payoff, and Ben Duffy. Those are going to be extremely powerful to help you overcome that barrier of no trust.
There you go.